Hello and welcome to my devlog. My name is Jarmo, aka Hero Crab, and in this episode I will present an update on my map and the minimap. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, to start off this video, I'm working with a slightly different format. I used to transition directly to the talking points, and now I'm just going to include them on the main screen so I can show and reveal them at the same time. First thing we'll do is hit play and we'll just take a preview of the map here. Okay, so here is my map, and up here in the top right is the minimap. I'm using an orthographic camera intentionally because I want to be able to see nearly all sides of these cliff formations in order to create the proper obstructions. On this map, I have a couple things going on. I have a rock surface here, and then I have a grass surface. I have some trees, and then I have some flowers sprinkled sparingly around the map. I also have some dirt areas, which I'm using a splat map for. And that in a nutshell is the map. The map is symmetrical, you can see from the minimap. So all quadrants will have, an equal topology. There'll be no advantage presented to any of the teams. All right, so moving along. I'd like to pause this and talk about the map making process. So before I directly talk about the map making process, I guess it would be wise to show you the effect that I was hoping to achieve. So the game I'm working on is a spiritual successor to the game Command & Conquer Soul Survivor, and this right here is a map from that game. Matter of fact, you can see that I modeled my map after this map, and that's to recreate the way that the game felt. This was a large map. There were lots of players on this map. While working on a map and coming up with a map concept, or at least a way to implement a similar map, there were a lot of challenges. The largest challenge were these cliff faces here. I did a lot of experimentation with different models, with meshes, with different materials, with displacement applied to materials. And at the end of the day, I really just found that this very smooth rock face cliff, it was easy to recreate. I would be able to make the maps fairly quickly, and it was less noisy. It was very performant, and I really preferred it over some of the other things that I had done. So coming back to the map here, you can see that the map is really designed to present a lot of obstructions so that players had to navigate around them. When they were clicking on this map, they would be going and farming crates, which would be all over these different cliffs and things like that. So to recreate this map, I basically took the map itself and put it into GIMP as a layer here. And I cropped one quadrant from this map. And that's because in the original game, the maps were not perfectly symmetrical. So after I cropped this here, I then traced over this with some white here, and I'll show that, to create this base layer. So any area that was elevated, I traced over with white. And then I had to impose basically, the transition from the lower level terrain to the higher level terrain with this gradient. So if you turn on the background and you omit the map, and you can see that the gradient here transitions from this gray color up to this white color. This would be the lower elevation. This would be the white would be the higher elevation. This is known as a bump map. It's very common in game development. I experimented a lot with different techniques on this, and I found that just a very simple feathering effect on the edge would give me the slope that I was looking for. I did try, various colors here to create more of a rocky cliff. I also did a whole bunch of things in Blender to work with creating an actual rocky mesh, and I did achieve success in many of those, but I really didn't favor them at the end when everything was put together. So once this is generated, I took this file here and put it into Blender and applied it to a plane. I then applied a displacement modifier to it and specified that PNG image that I just showed you, that I just created, and it essentially produced a map like this. I then just did some simple smoothing and was happy with the result. some various things I tried. I did write some shader logic here and applied displacement to the gradient using different noise patterns. And again, I really didn't prefer them when it was finished. So I think for the time being, I'm really comfortable with the way the map is looking. Here you can see it in 3D. I put some simple trees on the map and just did some minor color variations. You know, interesting game fact here. On this game, there will be no trunks on the trees, but you'll never know that from playing the game. And everything seemed to work out well. I did play around with perspective camera, which I can show here. If I change this camera to perspective and hit play, obviously it's a little zoomed in because I haven't tweaked it, but I didn't prefer perspective because I really liked the way that the game felt in the original, where everything was essentially top down and it was very clear. You could make your decision on where you wanted to go and how you wanted to enter combat and things like that. So I'm looking to recreate a lot of that. Okay, so moving along to the next talking point. We've covered the map preview. We've looked at some map comparison. And then we talked about kind of what didn't work, you know, trying different shaders, working with displacing the mesh in Blender, and even adding mesh directly to this for cliff faces actually felt way too noisy. Even though I thought it would look great when I started it, after I layered them in, it looked too noisy for the gameplay. And then one thing I wanted to cover in this video also was an update to the minimap. In a previous video, I had shown that this camera was being rendered by an orthographic camera, this map camera right here. And that was the case. I have since changed that to just render an image in the top right of the screen here. And so I've taken a static image of the map itself and cropped it. And now when the map loads, that image is loaded into here. I found this to be entirely more performant. You know, when I initially put it in, I wasn't really thinking about it. And this map camera was having to render all of the mesh, all of the triangles, and apply all the texture. So the, you know, various culling techniques were not at play for this map camera, and it was not performant at all. I was losing about 60 to 70 FPS on this lower 1050 Ti card that I'm developing on. So by just taking a static image of the map, I am then also able to just edit the color, the coloring of it in GIMP, and it just loads directly in. It's a lot more performant. Now the map camera does capture the units, and the units themselves actually have, let's see here. They actually have their own minimap icon, which you can see here above the unit. And these could be custom shapes to represent different units. Obviously, there'll be different colors for the teams, but the map camera is configured to capture only the minimap render layer, and the units will have this minimap marker on them, which belongs to that layer. Here you can see. And then that is rendered to a texture. And up here on the minimap, there is the minimap image and the minimap itself. The minimap is just rendering those units in that render mask, and everything else is transparent. And I was able to achieve that through ensuring that the background color had 0 for the alpha, and some very simple setting of the texture and the material, which I have here. Very simple comparison here on the color, and then it just renders black to opacity, and the image itself is rendered to the emissive layer. And so that is all working. I'm pleased with it for now. You know, I may clean up the minimap here and make it a little brighter or something, or maybe do some custom, drawing on it or something. But everything is working here, and I do have the collider added, so I'll be moving on to unit selection and continuing on the development process. So anyways, thanks for watching this video.